What if I told you that you could manifest absolutely anything? Without repeating affirmations, without hours of visualization, without lighting candles, without rituals, and without any elaborate techniques. Just through the power of your conscious observation. Sounds absurd, doesn't it? But pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you. The reality you live in is not the result of what you do. It's the result of what you observe as truth. There's something most people haven't yet understood, or rather, haven't accepted. The act of observing something with intensity, consistency, and emotional charge is what collapses that possibility in the quantum field. This isn't esoteric philosophy. This is physics, and it's the foundation of real manifestation. But here's the problem. People say they want abundance, but spend the whole day observing lack. They say they want love, but keep observing loneliness. They say they want health, but constantly observe symptoms, fear, and illness. And the universe responds to your observation. Always. In this video, I'll show you how to manifest anything in a practical, direct, no-fluff way, using only the way you observe your reality. And at the end, I'll give you a simple exercise that can unlock your vibrational field in minutes if you're ready to truly see. Because the instant you change the way you observe, everything around you begins to change as well. The truth no one told you. You were conditioned to believe that in order to manifest something in your life, you have to fight for it, that you must earn it, that you have to take relentless action. They told you you have to prove your worth to the universe, that only after much effort and maybe a little suffering would you be rewarded with what you desire. But what if I told you that's all a lie? Yes, this is the truth no one told you. Manifestation has nothing to do with physical effort or constant action. It has everything to do with what you are observing and how you are observing it. The most common mistake people make when trying to manifest is believing that the universe responds to what they want. But the universe doesn't respond to your desire. It responds to your sustained focus, to what you observe as real, even if you never say it out loud, even if you don't realize you're doing it. You may say you want abundance, but if you spend your entire day observing bills, worries, scarcity, lack, the universe will keep delivering exactly what you're vibrating, the frequency of absence. Here's the key point. Observing is different from looking. You look at many things throughout your day, but very few do you truly observe with presence, attention, and emotional involvement. And those few things are what shape your reality. Imagine a woman who says every day, "I want prosperity. I deserve to prosper." She writes in her gratitude journal, she does visualizations, follows every ritual she sees on YouTube. But deep down, she's observing her empty bank account with anxiety. She watches every expense with fear. She observes others' results with envy or comparison. What is she manifesting? The very same frequency she's sustaining through her daily observation. The universe doesn't hear your words. It feels your vibration. And your vibration is defined by what you consciously observe. That's the part that stings. But it's also what frees you. Because when you understand that your current life isn't the result of what others did to you, or your luck, or karma, but rather of what you've been observing as reality, you step out of the victim role and into the creator role. Manifestation begins where the illusion of external control ends. You don't need to change the world out there. You need to change where you're placing your awareness right now. Do you realize how big this is? How many times have you tried to think positive, but deep down kept observing the same old lack? How many times did you ask the universe for a miracle, while internally reinforcing feelings of scarcity, fear, and doubt? Here's where everything begins to shift. When you realize that what you consistently observe inevitably becomes the material of your experience. Now look at your life. No filters, no justifications, no masks. What are you really observing every day? What do you wake up and observe? What do you feed with your attention throughout the day? Do you observe possibilities or limitations? Do you observe what you already have or what's missing? Do you observe with trust or with doubt? Because what you observe as reality multiplies. It doesn't matter what you say you want. What matters is what you accept as true through your observation, and that changes everything. From now on, every time you catch yourself observing something with emotional involvement, ask yourself, is this what I want to see more of in my life? If the answer is no, then you already know what to do. Pull your awareness away, redirect your focus, change the channel of your attention. Yes, it requires awareness, because the mind was trained to observe the problem, the drama, the fear. But instant manifestation begins the moment you take back the controls and declare, from now on, I choose to observe what I want to see expand. This is the truth almost no one has told you, because it's too simple for the ego to accept, but powerful enough to transform your life the moment you choose to truly see. And if observation alone is enough to create reality, then what exactly is happening behind the invisible curtain of the universe when you do it? In the next section, I'll show you how your mind works like a quantum projector, and why everything you see out there actually began within you. What's coming next may turn your perception of reality inside out. The mind is a quantum projector. Have you ever watched a movie and gotten so emotional that you forgot it was just a projection? You got caught up in the story, reacted to the images, cried, laughed, felt fear or relief, but at no point did you realize that everything, every color, every scene, every detail was coming from a projector hidden behind you. That's exactly how your mind works. The reality you see is not what's really out there. It's a projection of what's happening inside, within the silent backstage of your consciousness. Your mind is the projector, the outer reality is the screen, and the movie playing was chosen by you. Even if unconsciously, this idea might seem simple at first, but if you truly understand what it means, your life will never be the same, because you stop being a victim of the screen and become the director of the script. The world isn't showing you what it is, it's showing you what you believe it is. The way you observe, interpret, and feel determines the images that will repeat on the screen of your life. And here's something even deeper. In quantum physics, there's a proven phenomenon. The observer alters the behavior of the particle being observed. In the famous double-slit experiment, scientists discovered that the mere act of observing changes the outcome. In other words, reality behaves differently when someone is watching. Now think about this. If matter responds to the gaze of an observer in a lab, why would it be any different in your life? Every one of your thoughts, every point of focus, every sustained emotion acts like a lens that shapes what the outside world will reflect back to you. You don't see what is. You see what you're vibrating, expecting, believing, and observing as truth. The projection happens all the time, and hardly anyone notices. That's why when someone says, life is hard, people are selfish, money is scarce, the universe, like a perfect quantum mirror, simply replies, okay, your will be done. But here's the curious part. This happens even when you don't want it to. Even when you say the opposite out loud. If your mind observes difficulty more often than abundance, if it observes scarcity more frequently than prosperity, the projector has no choice but to keep running that same movie. And here comes the transformation. If you change the film inside the projection room, that is, if you change how you're observing, the entire screen changes. Not because you ran outside to paste new images onto the world, but because you altered the source of the projection. Now pay close attention to this. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you observe as real. And that observation isn't made with your eyes, but with your internal state. That's why you can see two people in the same situation, living completely different realities. One sees opportunity where the other only sees chaos. One grows through the crisis while the other collapses, because each one's inner projector is calibrated differently. And this explains why external changes alone are never enough. You can move cities, switch jobs, find a new partner, change your environment, but if you don't change the projection, the movie you're watching stays the same, just with new settings. Reality, then, is not a prison. It's a blank screen, and your awakened mind is the brush that can paint anything. So now answer honestly, what have you been projecting without realizing? What stories have you been silently repeating in your head that are becoming the soundtrack of your world? Here's the good news. You can change that. And when you do, the universe won't take long to respond because it doesn't react to stray words or fleeting wishes. It responds to your consistent vibration, and your vibration is determined by what you observe, feel, and believe repeatedly. The moment you take control of the projector, you become the author of your reality. And if that feels intense, just wait until you see what's coming next. How you observe shapes the outcome. Have you ever noticed how two people can go through the exact same situation, yet each reacts completely differently and ends up with opposite results? One loses their job and has an emotional collapse. The other loses their job and turns it into the greatest opportunity of their life. What changes? What changes is the way each one observes what's happening. And this isn't just about positive thinking. It's about understanding that the way you observe something determines what it becomes in your reality. Yes, how you observe is just as important as what you observe. Because observing isn't just about pointing your eyes at something. It's a full act of consciousness. It involves attention, meaning, emotion, and expectation. And all of that generates a frequency. You can observe a problem expecting the worst, and guess what? The worst is likely to manifest. But you can observe the same problem with presence, openness, and neutrality. And the field of possibilities responds in a completely different way. The universe is not interpreting your words. It's reading the state of being you emit while you observe. That's why so many people get frustrated with manifestation. They say what they want, they think about what they desire, but they're observing with fear, doubt, anxiety, and then they ask, why isn't it working? It is working. It's always worked. It's just working based on your true emotional observation, not your surface-level desire. Imagine someone who is sick. She says, I want to heal, but every day she observes her body with fear. Every symptom becomes a sentence. Every pain, a threat. She observes illness with such intensity that her reality reflects it. Even though she wants healing, her observation is tied to fear. And the universe understands. She's tuned into this. Do you see? Observing with doubt creates more uncertainty. Observing with lack reinforces absence. Observing with judgment crystallizes the problem. But observing with consciousness opens the field. There's a subtle and powerful layer here. The meaning you give to what you observe. Because you're not just looking at reality, you're labeling it all the time. You see something and say, this is bad. You see a situation and think, this will go wrong. You see a challenge and label it a threat when you could simply observe it as a neutral experience. That label, that judgment, is what locks in your frequency. It's like you take a wave of possibility and freeze it into a specific form, usually negative, and tell the universe, this is what I'm choosing. And the universe says, perfect, here's more of that. But there's a space between what happens and how you feel about what happens. And it's in that space that your power lives. You don't need to change the fact. You need to change how you observe the fact. With presence, without judgment, with openness. When you do that, something magical happens. Your vibration changes. Your mind opens. The field reorganizes. And reality responds. Because quantum collapse, that is, the transformation of a possibility into an actual event, doesn't happen through the force of desire, but through the purity of observation. And that observation can be unconscious or deliberate. It can come loaded with fear or lit up by new perception. You choose. So let me ask you directly, how many times have you looked at your reality as if it were sabotaging you, when in truth it was you who was observing everything through the lens of limitation? If that awakens something in you, drop a comment below. I choose to observe with consciousness. This simple act already begins to reprogram your field. And if this content is resonating with you, leave a like now, because that tells the universe and the algorithm that this message needs to reach more people. Now pay close attention. If the way you observe already shapes your experience, what happens when you focus consistently on something day after day? In the next section, you'll understand how the quantum field responds directly to your sustained focus, and why everything you keep feeding your attention to ends up taking form, even if you don't want it to. What you're about to hear may explain a lot of what keeps repeating in your life. The field responds to your focus. Have you ever noticed how certain patterns seem to repeat in your life? Same situations, same emotions, same frustrations, just with different faces and settings? As if no matter how hard you try to escape, you're stuck in some kind of invisible loop. The truth is, there's a very clear reason why that happens, and it lies in the simplest and most overlooked aspect of manifestation: focus. The quantum field that surrounds us, that permeates everything, is in a pure state of potentiality. It has no shape, no direction, no preference. It simply responds. And it responds to what? To your sustained focus, not to a passing wish, not to the affirmation you repeat for 2 minutes and forget, but to what you focus on continuously with emotion, presence, and engagement. Because focus is more than attention. Focus is the fuel of creation. You're not just looking at reality. You're constantly transmitting signals to the field about what matters to you. And the field reflects that back to you in the form of experiences, encounters, and circumstances. It doesn't judge, it mirrors. If you spend your whole day focused on what's going wrong, on what's missing, on what frustrates you, then that's what the field receives as direction. It doesn't understand that you don't want that. It understands that this is what's being fed, nurtured, amplified. Because where your attention is where your vibration is. And the field doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you sustain with emotional focus. Think of a spotlight. What you illuminate grows. What you ignore fades. Your mind is that spotlight. Your focus is the beam of light. The field is the stage awaiting the next act. So tell me, what have you been illuminating with your focus? Have you been focusing on what you want to create, or on what you fear the most? Because glancing briefly at something positive now and then isn't enough. If your focus spends more time on lack, fear, and doubt, that's what the field will collapse into reality. And the scariest part? You could be doing it without even realizing. Many people live in survival mode. Their focus is always on the problem, the urgency, the next crisis, and this becomes a vicious cycle. The more you focus on what's wrong, the more the field responds with experiences that confirm something is wrong. Not as punishment, but as a mirror of what's being energetically sustained. But the good news is, it works the other way too. When you learn to direct your focus consciously, aligned, and coherently with the reality you want to create, the field responds, and it responds quickly. Because focus, when united with presence, has the power to reorganize patterns. This isn't just spiritual theory, it's quantum physics. On the subatomic level, everything exists as possibility until an observer with clear intent interferes. And that interference happens through focus. You literally collapse one among infinite possible realities the moment you keep your attention locked onto it. Now listen carefully. Focus is not rigidity. Focus is not obsession. Focus is vibrational coherence. It's when your thoughts, your emotions, and your intention point in the same direction. No rush, no doubt, just full presence. And when that happens, the field responds with synchronicities, insights, invisible shifts that begin aligning everything around you. Not because you forced it, but because you sustained the necessary vibration. So now take a deep breath and reflect. What have you been focusing on most intensely in recent days? What has been the silent center of your attention? You might say you want abundance, but if your focus is on the fear of not having enough, the field won't choose based on your desire. It will follow your vibration. And that's why awareness is everything. When you learn to direct your focus with clarity and alignment, your reality begins to shift from the inside out, naturally, inevitably, and often, surprisingly. And in the next section, you'll learn a simple and profound practice to interrupt the cycle of negative focus and begin creating inner space for new possibilities to enter your life. This technique, based on neutral observation, could completely transform the way you relate to your own mind and to the universe around you. Practical technique: the power of neutral observation. By now you've understood that the way you observe shapes reality, that your mind works like a quantum projector, and that the field responds directly to the focus you sustain. But there's a blind spot where many people stumble, even those familiar with these principles. It's when focus becomes contaminated with judgment. Observation gets mixed with fear, criticism, rejection, or attachment. And without realizing it, the observer begins reinforcing exactly what they want to transform. That's why now you're going to access one of the most powerful practices of this journey: neutral observation. To observe neutrally is to allow reality to exist without labeling, resisting, or trying to control it. It's to witness what's happening, internally or externally, with a clean presence, free from emotional reactivity. It's the opposite of automatic impulse. It's the birth of clarity. And in this state, something deeply transformative happens. Vibration shifts, because most suffering comes from the constant attempt to deny what is. You see lack and think, this shouldn't be here. You feel pain and try to suppress it. You experience fear and want to eliminate it. This resistance creates tension. Tension becomes frequency, and frequency shapes reality. But when you interrupt that struggle, even for a brief moment, you breathe and simply observe. Without judgment, without urgency, without labeling anything as right or wrong, the energy that was stuck begins to dissolve. It's like watching a storm from inside your home. It's happening, but it doesn't drag you away. You see it, but you don't get lost in it. In that moment, the field reorganizes, because your presence stops emitting resistance and begins emitting coherence. Neutral observation is not passivity, it's clarity. It tells the universe, I'm aware. I'm ready to create from the now. And this simple, yet profound shift breaks old patterns without force. It doesn't push, it releases. You may ask, how do I practice this in daily life? The answer is, start with what's present now. Choose something that bothers you, an emotion, a tension, a situation, and instead of fixing, judging, or running from it, just observe, like a scientist watching an experiment. No rush, no drama. No need to fix, you simply witness. And in doing so, the emotion softens. The thought loses its intensity. The pattern becomes visible, and everything that is seen with awareness begins to lose the power it once held in the dark. That's the strength of neutrality. You stop being swept away by the waves and start surfing them with awareness. Many people say they want to change, but still nurture silent judgments against themselves, against others, against life. And as long as your gaze is full of criticism, the field will continue collapsing versions that confirm that internal state. Neutral observation is the antidote. It doesn't demand perfection. It invites loving honesty. You observe and don't identify. You feel and don't define yourself by it. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The space between stimulus and response expands. And in that space, freedom is born. The power to choose, to create, to reconfigure the field, not from fear, but from vibrational presence. So if something inside you is asking for transformation, don't run, don't label it, don't rush. Observe with neutrality, with compassion, with awareness. That is the first step to breaking the cycle and stepping into the field of infinite possibilities. In the next section, we'll explore how to align this neutral state with your highest intention. You'll understand why instant manifestation doesn't depend on time, but on the coherence between who you're being and what you choose to observe. That's where everything starts to collapse. The new code of instant manifestation. There is a precise moment when manifestation stops being a struggle and becomes natural, almost inevitable. It's not when you wish harder. It's not when you repeat affirmations more often. And it's definitely not when you do everything right in the external world. The true collapse of the desired reality happens when there is total vibrational coherence between who you're being and what you're observing. That's when the field responds with speed. That's when manifestation feels instant. But what does that mean in practice? It means you're no longer trying to create something you don't yet believe is possible. You feel it's possible. You vibrate as if it's already real. You observe it so naturally that reality has no choice but to mirror it. There is no more tension, no more resistance, no more gap between what you want and what you observe as truth. This is the new code of instant manifestation, internal coherence. Because the universe doesn't respond to your words, it responds to the vibration you sustain. And the vibration you sustain is the sum of your focus, your observation, and your emotional identity. It's no use saying, "I am prosperous," if, when you look at your bank account, you're vibrating scarcity. It's no use saying, "I have love," if when you look in the mirror, you're vibrating rejection. Manifestation happens when your observation becomes a direct reflection of who you've decided to be. And that decision is not made in the mind. It's made in the body, in your frequency, in the presence of someone who already lives, feels, and observes it as real, even before seeing it with the eyes. That's quantum manifestation. Reality doesn't come to you. It responds to you. The time that separates desire from manifestation is not chronological. It's energetic. The more misaligned you are, the longer it takes. The more coherent you become, the more time collapses, until there's no more waiting, only presence. And manifestation stops being a future promise and becomes a natural consequence of your state of being. Want to know what accelerates this process? Deep acceptance of the now. You can't manifest the next step if you reject what you're currently living. Not because the universe demands gratitude, but because rejection vibrates separation, and separation creates vibrational distance. But when you observe your current reality with neutrality, with presence, with peace, you stop resisting life. And in the exact moment you stop fighting what is, you open space for what can be. That's the code. That's the key. That's the turning point between trying and receiving. Manifestation doesn't happen because you've learned the right technique. It happens when you stop observing the absence of what you want and start living as someone who has already accessed that version of reality. You change the observer, and you change the observed. You stop waiting for life to happen and start collapsing realities from the vibration you sustain in silence. And in that silence, in that place where you stop chasing, everything begins to chase you. You don't need to convince the universe. You just need to stop vibrating the opposite of what you chose to manifest. You don't need to do more. You need to be with more integrity. You don't need to search outside. You need to observe from within, with truth, with presence, with surrender. And when that happens, when you become a coherent field of vibration, intention, and observation, manifestation is just the next logical step. No effort, no struggle, no waiting. Reality responds to who you are, and you decide how you observe and how you vibrate. This is the new code, and now it's yours. Use it with awareness, use it with presence, use it with love, because everything you sustain with truth within yourself, sooner or later, will become visible before your eyes. We've reached the end of our journey, and if you've made it this far, something inside you has already begun to shift. Today, you didn't just hear words. You accessed a new level of consciousness. You understood that reality doesn't happen to you. It responds through you, that your observation shapes the world around you, that the focus you sustain feeds the quantum field, and that manifestation is not a matter of time, but of coherence. Now the power is in your hands, or rather, in your presence. The question is no longer, does it work? The question is, are you ready to observe as someone who already lives what you desire? If this journey touched you in any way, drop a comment below. I observe with consciousness and create with presence. That way I'll know you stayed until the end. and that you're ready to manifest a new reality. See you in the next video.